Johnny Fontana, half amazing discussions. Today we're gonna do a little something different. I'm going to explain to you what does it mean to be a real world INFJ, and basically also discuss the differences between a real world INFJ and a technical INFJ. If you don't know what an INFJ is, I've left some links below. You can go ahead and do your research. Find out what it is to be an INFJ, and I'll also leave a link that you can take a test, just a brief test, just so that you could have a better understanding of what I'm talking about. If you want to take the time to do so now, then come back to the video so you have a better understanding and be able to follow through or follow with me. Now, this is from my perspective only, and I'm sure that there are others that will subscribe to my perspective. I'm not imposing my views on anyone. I don't do that. I basically provide my opinion based on my personal experiences and my abilities, just to sort of analyze and pair different perspectives to create my own, right? Now, what does it mean to be a real world INFJ? Well, most INFJs that I've come in contact with, whether it be in real life or even on forums, you find that they are tremendous, and they're remarkable, right? In terms of their attributes, their abilities, their skills. Okay, they're incredible, but they're all on paper. Okay, they're very technical, which means that you have a lot of individuals that they're good at knowing the differences between the IS and the ES and the FN and all that good stuff. And they pride themselves on that. Like, it's like, if you don't know that, then it's like, well, shame on you. Like, you really need to get deep involved and to know that, because if you don't know this, and therefore you don't know the different the traits and characteristics and the qualities, and based on these definitions, if you don't know that, then basically you're not really experiencing the true definition of personality traits. That's what I find. And a lot of the times people, they go on forums or even in conversation, they want to discuss, okay, well, what is it to be this? What is it to be that? How can you do this? How can you do that? And a lot of times the real world conversations are not included. And that's the difference between a real world INFJ and a technical INFJ. And as it is, right now you have like technical INFJs sitting, just at the edge of their seats, like they want to comment, they want to say, oh, well, no, well, the reason that you're able to do this is because that's this particular personality trait that's kicking in, and then that's the N, and then that's the F that's kicking in. Well, that's your ability to do that, and that's great. That, I'm not taking that away from from those that do that. But then you have other people that are not so technical. Like, we're not great at math. Like, we, if we need to do the research, we'll do it based on, whatever that we're currently working on, that we need to properly gauge. But we don't spend our times in the actual book. We spend most of our times in real world environments, right? Studying people, and a lot of the times we'll tell you about who you are. And then I'll say, okay, take the test. And then we'll go and take the test. And then what I've told you sort of mirrors exactly what is on paper. But without even me having to now have gone and done any research or read anything about your particular trait. And that's just the real INFJ. It's not to say that some real world INFJs don't dabble in that. But I think that, and it's not to say that it's a waste of time. It's not. We all have our own strengths, but I feel that the real world INFJs are the ones that have been exposed to so much, right? They're not really sheltered, because you have a lot of technical INFJs that are sheltered because of just who we are. We don't expose ourselves to the world so much. But then you have those that are real world INFJs, and they sort of expose themselves, not purposely, but just based on on, their jobs. So for example, so for me, like, I've been a police officer, I've been a personal trainer, I've owned the business sports nutrition, um, been with the federal government, um, been, as a DJ. I love music. I also instruct. I also consult nightclubs. I coach DJs. So for me, it's about seeing the big picture and helping people and understanding things on a deeper level, on both on a technical but as well as an emotional level. Like, I'm able to now emotionally relate to things, so I can pair, music with places, and I can tell you about your functions, and understand you, because I've had the training in law enforcement in terms of how to read, body language, understand chemistry, understanding, how people think, the differences in cultures, because I've grown up in so many different, areas in my life, between an all white, all black neighborhood, lived in 7 different countries, was probably military, So all of these things, it's not because I just was like, I'm on a mission to be involved in all of these things. I was a police officer as well. So it's not like, it's just because of circumstances that has now created these events in my life. But my ability now is to take on these experiences and exposures and apply them to everyday, to my everyday life. Now, the thing about the real world INFJ, I find, especially in my experience, is that we're slow. Like, we're not quick to get things. Okay, it's not only until later on in life, as we're continuously exposed to these things, that all of a sudden it just snaps, and it's like, oh, now I get it. Now you can apply all of these things. But we're not the type to come in and be like, oh yeah, like, I'm the leader. Like, no, like, I'm the kind of person that if I'm in a room, I'll sit back. So for example, if I'm taking a course, I'll actually be the one to sit back, but I'll be the one to talk to the leaders and say, listen, such and such is having an issue. This person has an issue. This is what's going on. I can assess the actual room and be able to tell you, whereas those leaders, they can't. They're just very technical. They're good at applying this, and they're intelligent. They can, okay guys, this is what we need to be doing in terms of the actual, academically. They can lead. They can go in front of the board, and explain, on a technical level. For example, I was in military training. You had guys that were in the military, in the Navy previously, but they were very proficient at electronics and schematics, so they were able to break all these things down, but they had poor leadership skills in terms of being able to relate to people. So whenever things happen, I had to be the one to sort of, give that guidance. So I'm like the main commander, that you sort of see last. Like, I'm not always the one that's, hey, I want to lead, because I don't lead in that way. I'm more of the person that I'm like a program analyst, where I see things, I see all the disconnects, and then I'll approach, whoever's in the lead and say, listen, this is what needs to be happening. And people give me that respect because they know that I'm not so vocal, but I see the bigger picture, and I see everyone's weaknesses. I can come into a room and know exactly who you are, what your weaknesses are, and then I can basically sort of adapt, and sort of when I associate with you, I already know what kind of a person you are. So I'll tailor my actions towards you, and not just give you a blanket reaction to everything, as a lot of people do. So, in a nutshell, that's what a real INFJ is. Basically, we're just exposed to a lot of things, and yes, like for example, when it comes to being reserved, and yeah, like when I go to a party, I'll be in a corner. Like, I need to have my 2 or 3 people that I'm just talking to. I can't have a big group of people that I'm having a conversation with. I'm very reserved, even when it comes to making videos on YouTube. I'll get excited, after drinking coffee in the morning. I have all these ideas, and then 5 o'clock comes, and it's like I've lost everything. I've just lost that momentum. Like, I don't want to do it. I'm just drained from the whole entire day. And when I get home, it's like, leave me alone. Like, don't talk to me. And then I get into my own world that of just thinking, constantly thinking of different things, touching on different stuff. But again, it's like the technical aspects. Like, for example, we're interested in stuff like psychology, understanding, human interaction, how things work. So that's why we're good at giving advice to relationships. That's why, for example, when it comes to police brutality, because I've been a police officer, because I've policed both black neighborhoods, white neighborhoods, come from a black family myself, been exposed to so many different cultures, and understand policing not from a technical aspect, but also from a social and from just from an aspect that I can just see beyond the actual uniform and be able to relate to certain people. I can now voice not my opinions, but provide analysis. Whereas most people, they see, okay, this will happen. This will happen as a result because police are mean, because they're racist. Well, I see beyond the racism. I see because of the lack of training, because of the lack of exposure of certain officers from a different background. Now all of a sudden being placed in an oppressed neighborhood where they've never experienced that before, and now understanding how to now relate to people of different backgrounds, like all of these things. And also because of the fact that you have officers that are continuously on the go, and don't have any kind of psychological debriefing to sort of put them down. Also understanding that there's certain people that go into the job of police. All right, these are the kind of people that are not exactly the like the 9-to-5ers, like they just come home and they want to be at peace with the world. No, these are the kind of people that are ready, and at the drop of a dime they're gonna jump out the window to go save a cat. But then you have to understand that these people now, it takes a lot more for you to manage them and calm them down, because you can't have someone who's just so like all amped up, and then I expect that he comes home and just be able to shut it off like an everyday person. But people don't realize it. So that's the real world INFJ, that we're able to see these things, but in a real world situation, not only on paper. So a lot of the times, we because we have so much information, there's so much exposure, you find that we're not always asking all these questions. Oh, well, why is it this? Why do I feel that? Because we've experienced these things, and because we've been exposed to all these things, we've hit these blocks, and we've had to work on them. We didn't have time, like as a Marine, going through boot camp, I didn't have time to ask myself, why am I doing this? So it happens. But at the same time, I wasn't proficient. I wasn't technical. I wasn't like these guys that were good and they just got it all of a sudden. It took me a long time to get it. You see what I'm saying? Because I've had to get all these exposures, and all of a sudden I picked it up. But as a Marine, when I first got in, I didn't know. Like, I didn't know certain things that I needed to do in order to prepare myself for the military, in order to prepare myself in terms of getting in physical shape, in order to sort of alleviate some of the stresses. Because once you are in good physical shape, a lot of the other stresses are alleviated, because that's like 75% of just being mentally and physically straight. So once you have that physical ability and you're able to overcome certain things, that right there puts you at a mental state where you're just sort of a little bit more resilient and able to overcome certain things. But I didn't know that going in. Now I know, so now I can provide this information to other people. But then again, as an INFJ, it just takes a while. But as you get older, you sort of tap into things based on all your experiences and you put them together. But when you're just starting out, you're just lost, and you find that other people are excelling, and then you wonder how are they excelling so quickly, and I'm just lag behind. Because again, as INFJs, we don't expose ourselves, we don't put ourselves out there, so we're very reserved, we're very quiet, but we're always thinking. So as a real world INFJ, or as a technical INFJ, if you really want to become a real world INFJ and become that ultimate INFJ and a master INFJ, take those technical abilities, expose yourself to as much, and sometimes you expose yourself to things that you may not want to, but It's just for the benefit of now creating a better you, so that you can now master the actual the INFJ world, right? So Johnny Fontana, half amazing discussions. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, um, even for example, right now, because I was a personal trainer, I've been a personal trainer for over 10 years. I started doing radiology. I was in there for 1 year. I was able to sort of see the differences in how certain people apply themselves, like people of different backgrounds. So I'll give you one quick example. When I was taking a radiology course, there was a guy who was a mechanic, but he was able to do well in biology. He sucked at math, but he was able to do well in biology because he understood where all the body parts, were. I didn't really understand that. It wasn't until I was taking this past summer that I was taking a course on specialty vehicles for the military, like the fire trucks, snow blowers, sweepers, and stuff like that. There was an individual who had been an instructor there. He was also prior Navy, but he was also an instructor, as well as there was a former Navy guy. He was in this course as well. One of them, as an instructor, he was leaving the schoolhouse in order to pursue his degree in nursing. And there was another person that was with me in a class. He was actually pursuing his degree in ER surgery. But these guys are able to get it, like on a mechanic level. They're able to see like the schematics and all these intricate things. Like they're able to get like the technical aspects of being a mechanic. Whereas for me, I couldn't see it, but I was able to see certain things of like how the difference between we're being instructed and how it's affecting. I was looking at the program itself and the disconnect between how certain individuals are performing based on their abilities to take in some information. So then I would express, well, the reason why they're not getting it is because it's just basically PowerPoint, and we're not getting the actual the visual and the hands-on training that we need. So I was able to sort of express that and see that, whereas the other technical guys, they were just more focused on the actual technical aspect itself. So that relationship between being a mechanic and the medical field, for me, is very interesting. Like I was trying to figure out, is if the mindset, if you are able to now, because you are in the medical field, are you able to now do well at mechanics? Where I knew that some guys were the engineers, they were going to school for engineering, they hated mechanics because they felt that it was reverse engineering. Like it just didn't make sense to them. Where you had some people that they understood it, but they just don't like it. Like they don't like mechanics, but they're engineers, but they don't like the mechanic work at all. But they're good at math, but they hate mechanics. So very interesting. So these are the kind of things that, as a real world INFJ, because you're exposed to these things, you see these things, you sort of take interest into that. So if you find yourself just sort of reserved and you only know about the books and the only thing you can offer is knowing the functions in this, but when it comes to real world, you're not there. Try to expose yourself out there and get that knowledge. And for me, living in 7 different countries helped me a lot. Being exposed to all these different things, different professions, all these trainings, based on these, given to me by these professions, really helped me out a lot. So anyway, this is the final sign off. I know I talked a lot. Johnny Fontana, half amazing discussions. We out.